Right now, if you walk through a cemetery, it feels completely normal. Flowers, gravestones, quiet respect. But nearly 100,000 years ago, long before cities, farming, or even written language existed, someone stopped what they were doing, dug a pit into the earth, gently placed another human inside it, surrounded the body with carefully chosen objects, and covered it forever. The strange part is this: they gained nothing from doing it. No food, no shelter, no immediate survival advantage. So why would people struggling just to stay alive spend precious time burying their dead? Most people imagine that ancient humans were driven only by instinct. Hunt, eat, sleep, survive, but archaeology keeps revealing something completely different. The deeper scientists dig into our past, the more they find evidence that our ancestors cared about each other in ways that seem surprisingly familiar. And some of the oldest clues aren't tools or weapons. They're graves. Here's the twist. Many people think burial rituals began after civilization, after villages, after religion. But the evidence points much further back. Tens of thousands of years before pyramids rose over Egypt or temples filled Mesopotamia, small bands of hunter-gatherers were already treating death as something meaningful. One of the most remarkable places is Skhul Cave in present-day Israel. Around 100,000 to 130,000 years ago, early modern humans were laid carefully into prepared pits. Archaeologists found bodies positioned deliberately instead of being left where they died. One burial even included the jawbone of a wild boar placed across the chest. That wasn't an accident. Someone chose that object. Someone believed it mattered. Imagine standing inside that cave. The fire has burned low. Everyone is silent. A child watches as the adults carefully lower someone they loved into the ground. Nobody explains why. Yet everyone understands this moment is different from every other task of the day. In that quiet scene, you may be looking at one of humanity's earliest shared rituals. But Skhul isn't the only surprise. Not far away, at Hilazon Cave, also in Israel, archaeologists uncovered another astonishing discovery dating to roughly 90,000 to 100,000 years ago. A young individual was buried with red deer antlers placed carefully beside the body. Red ochre stained parts of the burial. Ochre had no nutritional value. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't clothing. People had collected it, carried it, and intentionally used it during the burial. That single detail changes everything. Most people think symbolic thinking appeared suddenly with art in European caves around 40,000 years ago. But graves like these suggest symbolism had already taken root tens of thousands of years earlier. Before painting giant bison across cave walls, humans may already have been expressing ideas about memory, identity, or perhaps even an afterlife. Notice something fascinating. Archaeologists can't read minds. They don't know exactly what those people believed. That's where science becomes careful. Instead of claiming certainty, researchers study patterns. Carefully placed bodies, repeated burial positions, objects intentionally included. These repeated behaviors suggest planning and shared traditions rather than random accidents. Then another mystery appears. Around 60,000 years ago, a different kind of human was doing something remarkably similar. The Neanderthals. For decades, Neanderthals were portrayed as slow, primitive, almost animal-like. The stereotype became so powerful that calling someone a Neanderthal turned into an insult. But discoveries kept embarrassing that old assumption. At Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, archaeologists uncovered several Neanderthal burials. One individual, known today as Shanidar I, had survived devastating injuries years before death. His arm had been badly damaged. He had serious vision problems. Walking would have been difficult. Yet he lived long enough for healed injuries to form. Think about what that means. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. someone accepted that he could no longer contribute equally to dangerous hunts. That level of long-term care makes little sense if survival alone is the only goal. Another burial at Shanidar became famous because pollen was found around the skeleton, leading to the idea that flowers had been placed in the grave. While later researchers debated whether rodents may have carried some pollen into the cave, the larger question remained unchanged. Neanderthals repeatedly returned to the same place to bury their dead with remarkable consistency. Even when one explanation became uncertain, the broader pattern of intentional burial remained convincing. And here's something almost funny. Modern humans argue endlessly over where to park a car or who forgot to reply to a message. Meanwhile, Ice Age hunter-gatherers somehow managed to organize careful burials without calendars, smartphones, or written instructions. Cooperation may have been one of humanity's oldest superpowers. Then, archaeology delivered another surprise. Not every ancient grave belonged to a healthy adult. At Sunghir, in western Russia, around 34,000 years ago, 2 children were buried together with astonishing care. Thousands of ivory beads, carefully crafted spears, fox teeth ornaments, and decorative objects surrounded them. Creating those beads required thousands of hours of labor. Why spend that much effort on children who could never repay it? That's the question that still echoes through archaeology today. Those children at Sunghir force us to ask a question that reaches far beyond archaeology. If survival was the only rule of the Stone Age, why invest thousands of hours creating beautiful objects for someone who had already died? The answer isn't written anywhere. But the evidence points towards something unmistakably human. Love, memory, identity, the desire to say, "This person mattered." Most people assume ancient burials became more elaborate because humans suddenly became more intelligent. But the evidence suggests something different. Intelligence had already been there. What changed was the size of communities and the complexity of their traditions. As groups grew, rituals became stronger ways of keeping people connected, even after death. Travel west to Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, about 27,000 years ago. Here, archaeologists uncovered one of the most unusual burials ever found. 3 young individuals were buried together. One lay in the center, while the others were positioned carefully beside him. Red ochre covered parts of the grave, and the arrangement appeared deliberate rather than random. Researchers still debate exactly what happened. Were they family members? Did they die together? Was the central individual given special status? No one knows for certain. But the burial tells us something important. These people weren't simply disposing of bodies. They were creating ceremonies with meaning, using symbols understood by everyone in their community. Then there is Sunghir, where those thousands of ivory beads reveal another astonishing fact. Every tiny bead had to be carved by hand from mammoth ivory. Experiments suggest producing a single complete burial could have required thousands of hours of work. Imagine an entire community spending weeks, perhaps months, preparing a farewell instead of hunting or gathering as usual. That is an extraordinary investment. Here's another assumption that archaeology has overturned. Many people believe religion created burial rituals. But some archaeologists argue the relationship may have worked the other way around. Repeated burial traditions could have helped shape early spiritual beliefs instead of simply reflecting them. In other words, humans may not have buried their dead because they already believed in an afterlife. They may have begun asking questions about life after death because they started burying their dead. That reversal changes everything. Death is one of the few experiences every human society has shared. Every generation has had to answer the same impossible question: what happens when someone you love is suddenly gone? No fossil can tell us exactly what ancient people believed. But graves reveal that they refused to treat death as meaningless. One discovery captures this beautifully. At Hilazon Tachtit cave in present-day Israel, around 12,000 years ago, archaeologists uncovered the burial of an elderly woman who appears to have held a special role within her community, possibly a ritual specialist or shaman according to current interpretations. Her grave contained the shells of tortoises, eagle wings, the tail of a wild cow, leopard bones, and other carefully selected animal remains. This wasn't an ordinary burial. Every object had been gathered intentionally. Every placement required planning. Whether she was a healer, a spiritual leader, or someone remembered for extraordinary reasons, her community devoted enormous effort to honoring her. By this point, burial had become much more than a practical act. It had become storytelling through objects. And perhaps that's what graves really are. Stories, not written with ink, but with stone, ochre, beads, antlers, flowers, shells, and carefully placed bones. Stories that survived for tens of thousands of years. Archaeologists often describe graves as conversations across time. The people who dug them never imagined satellites, Na analysis, or ground-penetrating radar. Yet they left messages anyway. Every careful burial says the same thing. Someone lived here, someone was loved here, and someone chose to remember. Modern science has added another layer to this story. Ancient Na extracted from burials has allowed researchers to reconstruct family relationships, migration patterns, and even disease histories. A grave is no longer just a resting place. It has become one of history's greatest libraries. Every skeleton, every tooth, every fragment of bone carries information that helps us understand how humans spread across continents and how communities were connected. Ironically, the dead continue teaching the living. Of course, not every archaeologist agrees on every interpretation. Some burials once thought to prove spiritual beliefs may eventually receive more practical explanations. New discoveries constantly reshape old theories. That's the strength of archaeology. It changes its mind when better evidence appears. But one conclusion has remained remarkably stable. Ancient humans cared. They cared enough to stop hunting for a while. They cared enough to dig graves with simple tools. They cared enough to place treasured objects beside people who would never use them again. They cared enough to remember. And perhaps that's the real beginning of civilization. Not the invention of farming, not the first city, not the first king, but the moment one human looked at another and decided that even death should not erase their place in the group. Think back to that quiet burial at the beginning of this story. A small fire burns outside a cave. Family members stand in silence as someone is lowered gently into the earth. They have no writing, no monuments, no history books. Yet, without realizing it, they are creating one of humanity's oldest traditions. Because the first grave was never just about death. It was about love surviving loss. It was about memory defeating time. And it was the first promise that a human life would still matter even after its final breath. So the next time you pass a cemetery or pause at a memorial, remember this: you're not witnessing a modern custom. You're witnessing a tradition that has connected human hearts for over 100,000 years. The oldest monuments humanity ever built weren't for the living. They were acts of remembrance for the dead. And perhaps that's what truly made us human. If you enjoyed this journey into our ancient past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next story hidden beneath the soil.